Sa dumadaming populasyon ng mga second-generation Filipino-Canadians sa bansa, hindi po may iwasang ilan sa kanila ang nakakaranas ng identity crisis. Paano nga ba sila naapektuhan ng sabay na pagiging Filipino at Filipino-Canadian? Ano ang mga posibleng masamang epekto ng identity crisis at paano sila matutulungan? Panoorin ang kwento ng mga kabataang itinuturing na second-generation immigrants sa unang bahagi ng OMNI News Special Report na pinamagatang Second Gen.
I've always felt very separated from my Filipino culture. I can barely understand what my dad is saying half the time, and it really sucks because he's my dad and I love him. I've always felt very separated from my Filipino culture. In terms of my family, they felt very Filipino, but me in my own skin, I don't feel very Filipino, especially because I don't speak the language.
I've never heard of that before.
You haven't?
No.
Then you're not a Filipino.
What? Probably not their thing.
I can barely understand what my dad is saying half the time, and it really sucks because he's my dad and I love him. And it's he also can't understand half the stuff that I'm saying sometimes. He's much better at speaking English than I am at speaking Tagalog, but it's sad knowing that you can't really understand your father most of the time. I can deal with not being able to understand people who are Filipino, but not being able to understand my dad is probably one of the worst things about it. I felt bad, I felt like I was disappointing my parents because it's I really want to honor the culture, but it's difficult when you haven't grown up around that.
You know what? Before I came here in Canada,
Free powder.
I insisted to ride a kalesa.
What is that?
I love eating a lot of the food I love eating, and I feel very happy when I eat it because I feel connected to the culture, but it's also the more adventurous foods that are what was it called again? The egg, the balut, yeah. I very much shy away from that. I've tried it once, and it's and salted egg, it's too much for me sometimes.
Nana, is there any rice?
Oh, no, I forgot.
I like the ones with sabaw a lot. Sinigang. I had tinola last night. That was really good. Adobo. Lumpia. A lot of the desserts, yeah.
What would you say are some of the pros and cons of being Filipino?
The pros, definitely our rich culture, all our food, our traditions, our home country, the environment, our natural beauty as well.
Yes. Can we still wear the hat?
My con for being Filipino-Canadian would be being away from the country and not knowing the true experience of being a Filipino who's born and raised in the home country itself, and not really being able to call it home. I call it my home country because that's where my parents are from, but to me it doesn't really feel like true home.
Do you feel like you need to experience a childhood in the Philippines to fully be Filipino?
I mean, not necessarily, but I just think I could have, I would have been more connected to the culture if I spent more time in the Philippines. I always felt that, they have their own jokes, they have their own way of talking, and whenever I try to come to the conversation, it kind of feels like I'm evading something that I'm not really a part of.
Paano ko po kayo matutulungan ngayon?
Kasi medyo concerned po ako. Meron po kasi akong anak na 10 years old nung pumunta kami dito sa Canada. Ngayon napapansin ko po.
Identity crisis is yung proseso na
e-experience natin bilang tao, wherein kino-question natin kung sino tayo in terms of our personality, in terms of our values, or kung ano yung role natin sa society or sa mundo, kung ano yung mga pinaniniwalaan natin. Posibleng mag-cause ng identity crisis yung kakulangan ng supportive environment para sa isang tao, conflicting expectations sa society and sa culture, peer pressure or bullying.
You guys want muffins?
Hindi naman lahat na-experience yung identity crisis pag nag-immigrate to Canada, no? Pero it is common. Madaming nakaka-experience ang identity crisis. A lot of it is part of the adjustment. So those who are born and raised here, so we call them like second-generation immigrants, it doesn't exempt them from having identity crisis. And the reason for that is because yung parents nila have grown in a different culture and carry that with them when they immigrated. And so yung second-generation immigrants are very much in between dun sa culture ng parents nila who are raising them here in Canada and also living in the culture that they're in, yung Canadian culture. So parang they're operating in two worlds.
Then come back here and I'll have...
Sana makahanap siya ng group of friends na supportive and accepting of our diversity and our differences.
If nagkakaroon ng difficulty, if nagkakaroon ng identity crisis, it could also impact their mental health. So think about emotional distress, anxiety or depression. Posible din na because of identity crisis, medyo mas maging confusing yung pag-isip nila ng life goals or aspirations sa buhay, and also finally pwede din silang mag-engage in riskier behaviors. So riskier behaviors, for example, substance use, being part of a friend group na hindi ganun ka-positive yung influence. Individually, the behavior could be self-harming or having suicidal ideation.
Ano nga ba ang mga senyales kung ang isang batang Filipino-Canadian ay nakakaranas na ng identity crisis? At ano ang maaaring gawin upang matulungan silang timbangin sa kanilang sarili? Abangan bukas sa ikalawang bahagi ng aming special report dito lamang sa OMNI Filipino.